Welcome into this Five Clubs conversation. I'm Gary Williams. There are a lot of guys who've won on the PGA Tour. Just getting there is really kind of miraculous, but winning 3 times shows that, you were a damn good player. Now, the guy who's going to join me here in studio in just a moment, yeah, he's a 3-time winner, and he's still in his early 40s, but he is not fully exempt anymore on the PGA Tour. So what's next? Do you continue to kick it around on the Korn Ferry Tour and keep the dream alive? Or are you to move on to other things? Well, I think he should be on television, not only because he has the credibility of somebody who has won several times, but because he's got a curious mind, he's interesting, and he's opinionated. We're going to find out a lot more about him and his thoughts on everything going on in professional golf coming up with Johnson Wagner. With that, it's good to see you, Johnson Wagner.
Good to see you too, Gary. Been a while.
I know it. It certainly has. I appreciate you coming in. It's nice now that I'm here in Charlotte to have guys like you and Webb and Harold who are right in town.
We got a lot of guys, young and up-and-comers too. Trevor Cohn, who won on the Korn Ferry. Charlotte's kind of booming as a golf town.
I know it. And I do want to get your thoughts about President's Cup because I think it's going to be great, but it may look a little bit different than people thought at the beginning of the year. There's so much going on, and I have always thought, and I've said this to people that know you, that you've got a curious mind, and there's a lot of things to discuss. I do want to ask about you. Like, where are you with your career right now?
I had an accident back in February, hurt my left knee, and then I missed a couple of events, played a few this spring, and then I've hurt my right knee. So I'm getting ready tomorrow to have surgery on my right knee, and I've only played 6 events this year, so I'll start back in the fall, playing out a past champion category, and see where it goes. But I'm on the last few holes of my career, I'd say. Unfortunately, I'm giving a lot of thought to what's going to happen next, and kind of enjoying being home with my kids. Spent most of my life traveling 30 weeks a year, so it's been nice these last couple of years, playing 10 or 15 events or less and being home.
The beauty of the game is that you can play it forever. The challenge is to play at an elite level for a long, long time. I always marvel at guys who remain fully exempt until they're 50. I think it's one of the most underrated things in the world to do. Are you facing your own mortality? I mean, is that the truth?
It is, and it's, I've never been a long player. I've been a good putter, and the way the game has changed the last 5 years, it's just, at 42, am I willing to work as hard as I need to compete with these 25-year-olds, 22-year-olds that come out of college ready to go. When I was 22 coming out of college, I needed 4 years on the Nationwide Tour, Korn Ferry Tour. I needed to develop. When I got on tour, it took me a couple of years to get comfortable. And I don't know what they're drinking in college these days, but they're coming out ready to take jobs. And there's not that there's no respect, but they are ready.
They're not waiting in line. I mean,
no.
and I mean that with all the respect in the world. They just they don't apologize. No. They don't wait in line. And they prove it, and there are examples, guys right now that they haven't necessarily won, but Cam Young and Will Zalatoris, we can go on and on
right.
over the last 10 years. Does anything have to do, what do you think are the main ingredients as to why it seemed like 30 was prime and now 20 is prime? Why is that?
So when I went to school, we worked out in the off season with the assistant football trainer. We were doing bench presses and squats and, just the worst exercises for golf. And this was, late 90s, early 2000s. And now I think all these golf programs have golf-specific trainers. They work out year-round. It's kind of part of their practice is the gym. And look at TrackMan technology and how much more we know about fitting golf clubs to kids. So I think at a younger age, they're just have access to stuff that you used to have to be one of the best in the world to have access to.
The awareness of like who you're competing against. There's a great story going back to Bird Magic, like they saw each other, like there was like 1 or 2 interludes, and then went back to their respective schools, like that's the guy. And now I feel like there's far more exposure to what you're measured against at the junior level. Like I'm around some junior golf now through the Underrated Tour that Steph Curry is funding. but AJGA. And these kids, it's like, I know how good the best is now. And like that light doesn't go on when they're 23, 24 anymore. It like goes on when they're 15.
Right. I've had my son's playing junior golf and he likes to do other things, but I think a lot of people are more single sport minded now. And so they're focusing on golf at a younger age. I mean, whereas all my friends, we all played every sport imaginable growing up and didn't really focus on golf until we got to college. So I think a little bit of that has a lot to do with it too.
You won the Met Amateur a couple times, and for those folks unfamiliar with I mean, that's one of the great wins you could ever have as an amateur in a part of the country that is so rich with not only great golf courses but great historical winners of that. Did that give you kind of belief? Are those moments essential moments to you progressing?
I didn't really think about playing much Metropolitan Golf Association stuff. It seemed like the Met Amateur was always kind of around the USAM, so I would try to focus on that. And the Met Am came to a course that I caddied at Hudson National, and I qualified for it and ended up winning, and just fell in love with the MGA and how they run events. And then the list of golf courses that they play, the next one was at Piping Rock, and they play Somerset Hills, and it's the Met Open, Wingfoot, Bethpage. It's
like a
remarkable.
major rota. I mean, seriously, that's how good the golf courses are.
And after I won my first Met Am, that's when I knew that I was going to try to play professional golf. I mean, my confidence skyrocketed, and that was kind of the light going off that it wasn't going to be a pipe dream anymore, that I was going to do it.
Yeah. You were born in Texas, and then I know that you grew up, because your father was working as a professor at West Point. Did you move up there? How old were you when you moved up there?
He changed careers. We moved from Texas when I was 7, and he got his PhD at Vanderbilt, so I kind of grew up in Nashville, and then we moved to New York when I was a freshman in high school.
Okay. I used to go to college football games at Army because I was living in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and my dad was a huge sports fan. And so when we moved up there, it's like, other than Yankee games and, what else can we do? And I always remember seeing the golf course and some of the golf holes when we were driving in. Is that the golf course you played when you were? It was our home course. They shut it down for about 2 years when I was there to redo it. And so we had to play other places, but it was one of the courses I played a ton. And on the back nine, you go right up to the Army ski hill too. And I mean, the mints back there, and the golf course is awesome, spectacular. I think it's a Robert Trent Jones, and it was always a blast to play. Yeah. How did you get noticed? Did you get noticed through high school golf, through playing some competitive junior golf? How did Virginia Tech come into your purview?
I played the Scott Robertson, which is a tournament in Roanoke, Virginia. A few of my friends from New York, we got accepted to play the tournament, and I played a really good final round. The coach, Jay Hardwick, the coach of Virginia Tech, was, as he likes to say, following someone else in my group, and he took a liking to me and offered me a spot on the team basically that day.
Did you have a seminal moment or a moment, whether it was through college or when you turned professional, that was a light bulb week or moment that made you think that you could pursue this in a sensible way, like this could happen for you?
Yeah, the whole, like we talked about just a minute ago, the whole MGA experience. I won the Met Am and then won the Metropolitan Open as an amateur right after, and went on a run the next summer up there too. And that was all those events. I started winning golf tournaments, and you kind of, to have a good college career but not really win. I wouldn't have tried to turn pro. But when I started winning at a clip I was winning at, I knew it was going to be.
Yeah.
Happen.
Were you beating anybody that was similar in age that you knew was really good?
No, up there it seemed like they were.
They're all mid-ams.
They're all mid-ams. George Zeringer, I don't know if you know George, but
hell yeah, he won the Mid-Am at Ridgewood when I was like 12 years old. He's a legend.
Right, George and Jerry Corville.
Yes.
I beat both of them in match play, and it was the match against Jerry Corville was a real highlight. And I don't know.
How old was he when you
he
beat
was
him?
Probably 40.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny because John Cook, John was in the 1974 Amateur at Ridgewood, and they're having the Amateur again in August for the second time. And Jerry Pate won the Amateur, but if you look at the guys who were in the field, it was Craig Saller was in the field, Curtis Strange, Gary Koch. There's a couple guys, O'Meara, and John Cook beat Gordon Brewer in the second round. Now, Gordon Brewer, for people who don't know, is a legend. And his son runs Callaway. And John always likes to say, I walked that old man in after the 15th hole. He wasn't old. He was like in his late 30s.
Right. That's how the kids feel about me today.
Exactly.
I know. Harold Varner, we play a lot of golf here in town together. He calls me old man all the time. I'm like, just wait. He just got married, had a kid, and I'm like, you'll be there, snap of the finger, and you're going to be 42, and people are going to be calling you old man. So
it's true.
Yeah.
The guys, when you turned professional and you got on what was web.com and then now the Corn Ferry Tour, were there guys that you looked at and you said those guys are going to make it? I mean, and who were they?
Well, we had a great group of friends. Brendan DeYoung got on the Corn Ferry right after me. We were teammates in college. Snedeker, we kind of grew up playing junior golf in Nashville, so we hung out a lot. Ryan Armour, and we all got out there. Jeff Quinney was out there. Kevin Stadler was out there. Stads is still such a great friend, and we played practice rounds together, and there was just never a doubt where we were headed. And I think it helped a lot having that core friendship of guys. We eat dinner together, we do everything together, and we all got on tour at the same time, so it was pretty fun.
The setups of golf courses when you got out there. Look, Tiger he was already a deity, and Phil was a great supporting man as far as second on the marquee. I mean, it was high times. The money in the game was exploding. Did you notice right away that the setups of the golf courses were set up in a way that, people talk about bomb and gouge. Explain to people, first of all, theoretically what that means and how authentic that statement is.
2007 was my rookie year, and I remember having rough every week of the year. The Wells Fargo had nasty rough. I mean, everything had rough. And if you hit it a long way, you'd gouge it out of the rough. Now there's very few weeks that have wedge out rough, and it's changed. I think the tour realizes that birdies sell, and the lower the score, the better. So I feel like the setup's changed a lot. But when I was out there, you needed to hit it straight or hit it really long and have wedges coming out, because 7 irons out of tour rough was not happening.
Do you think that decision was made as a whole for the field to be more entertaining, or was it in any way catering to the fact that the two biggest stars in the game were not exactly the most accurate drivers?
I never thought about it that way. I thought that it was to cater to the longer players. I think people, it's like someone who can dunk a basketball. Like, we want that in the sport, and so chicks dig the long ball. I mean, everybody.
It's one of the great commercials of all time.
So
with Maddox and Glavine.
Yes. And it's kind of phased out the shorter hitter. I think about a guy like Zach Blair, who, young guy playing on tour. Like, how is he going to compete going forward?
Right.
I mean, he hits it long enough for his size, but if you're not carrying the ball 285 yards and you're under 30, you need to figure something out.
Yeah. I don't know if that has anything to do with him building a golf course in South Carolina right now.
Probably.
I mean, I don't know how you can get past that cold reality of, and very rarely do I meet somebody and they want to tell me about some young player. Nobody ever says that person makes everything. They always want to tell me how far they hit it.
Right.
I mean, I want to know who makes everything. And I look, the thing about guys like Spieth in particular, Jordan has got pop in his bat. The notion that he's short is ridiculous. He had a stretch there where he did feel like he made everything. But the guys, that's why, Johnson, I look back on, and I was having this conversation with somebody last week about Zach Johnson. It was actually a buddy of mine who grew up in the state of Iowa. I said, borderline Hall of Fame career, considering the era in which he was trying to, throw punches in. I mean, is that accurate? 2-time
major champion.
Yes.
I would think
12 wins.
Yeah, I would think he's darn close to a Hall of Fame career. And he led the money list my rookie year on the nationwide tour, and what a great guy, first of all. But you don't see guys built like that anymore competing on the PGA Tour. And his wedge game is outstanding. I mean, Zach his career is mind-blowing, really, to me.
Yeah.
How hard he worked, and he was it's like Webb Simpson, just very regimented in how they prepare, and that's what it takes.
Is the era or the player who is built as a great tactician, are they in a riptide that is not going to change?
I mean, I think you can still, you got to be a tactician around Harbor Town and major championships. I mean, look at a guy like Will Zalatoris. Now, he murders the ball, hits it high and far, but he's not an incredible putter, but he plays his way around the golf course. He hasn't won on tour yet, but he is in the hunt every major championship. I think the harder the golf course is, it lends itself to more tactical play. I think that's one thing when I get my tour evaluation at the end of the year, I say setup needs to be harder, firmer, faster greens, more rough, because it brings that style of play back in. But, you go play the Dominican Republic and there's, you'd rather be in the rough sometimes because it's fluffy past Palom and there's no penalty. And so you play a place like that and it limits who can win that golf tournament.
It's interesting. You brought something up that I'm really interested to ask you about because it's about feedback. And when you get whatever that, is it a sheet? Is it something you're filling out online send into the tour?
Yeah, it's online.
And basically, what is it? Is it almost like a review of all the things that you expect as a tour member, and you're giving your feedback? It's
a year-end thing. It's all the way from security staff, player dining, to course setup, practice area setup, everything. It is it takes about 20 minutes to fill it out, and I don't know if a lot of people do it, but I do it every year because, how else is the tour going to improve? And I think it's important, and it's one of those things. We don't really have rookie orientation anymore with this wraparound season. It used to always be at Q School, and that was one of the things they stressed was, fill out your year-end stuff, and I think we need to start training the younger players a little better.
Well, with what is going on now, I can't think of a more critical time for players to be providing input and feedback on the things that need to get better. And look, for some people, it may just all come down to one thing, which is money, whatever. But it's got to be more than that. I mean, as you look at the reasons other than money, are there reasons other than money that somebody would leave the PGA Tour?
I can't imagine. I mean, we have incredible retirement. We've got wonderful health insurance. I mean, the purses, I think there's plenty of money to be made. I love, that's one thing Jay Monahan always talks about is, as we've discussed over the last 10 years about guaranteed money, maybe a $5,000 a week so we can pay our expenses. And the tours always kind of shut it down because sponsors love the idea that, PGA Tour players earn what they make. There's no handouts. You pay for your travel, you pay for everything. And that's what's so, I think that sponsors really, really like that stuff. So I have no issues with the PGA Tour. I don't know what, other than money, I don't know what could be a problem that we have. We don't have a players union. I mean, and it's been discussed. It's always discussed. I don't know what the benefits of having it would be. But I think they take really good care of us.
Yeah. Look, one of the great things, and it's authentic, is that it really is a meritocracy, and that you get what you earn based on performance, and it really is a separator. Now, it's not to say that sponsorship money for stars is whatever it's going to be, and I don't know how that could dull motivation. I certainly it never did with Tiger, who had more money before he hit a competitive golf shot professionally than anybody in the history of professional golf. But I do think that those days, they seem like they have to be coming, that they have no choice.
Well, the tour's doing some great things to combat, and now if you play 15 events, you get I don't know if it's bad if I share it, I don't care, but if you play 15 events on the PGA Tour, you get $50,000. Just here you go. It's kind of a guaranteed money deal, and I think it's great. I wish it had happened for the 15 previous years that I had played 15 events, but it's. I thought Tiger's press conference at the Open Championship was incredible. He said, and it's the way I feel, if you're getting paid a ton of money up front to play, what is the motivation to dig it out of the dirt and practice and get better? If I had guaranteed money and I was not having to make cuts, and it sounds pretty nice, don't get me wrong, but there would be zero motivation for me to practice.
Yeah.
And I'd just go out there and be done. But when you play on the PGA Tour, everybody else is practicing. You better work your tail off if you expect to have a job the following year.
Yeah, I think that this is, they find themselves in a challenging position because they're fighting something that doesn't necessarily, they're not applying market principles to the amount of money they're spending. Now, I'm not saying that they won't eventually have sponsorship and they'll be able to get back some of the money they've invested. But that's going to take forever, considering how much money they've already spent. And again, I'm not asking you if you were offered $50 million, would you go or not? But if in your life your dream was to play professionally and you knew it was going to be all about showing up and making whatever you made based on how you performed, and now it's like, well, this whole new model is here, and you know this better than anybody because you played. Like when you're playing well, you never think you're going to play bad again. And when you're playing bad, you never think you're going to play well again. And I don't think it's an accident that a handful of these guys are either compromised because of injury, they're later on in life, or in the case of the young guys, my God, this money is being thrown at them that they never in their wildest dreams thought was going to be possible. So, again, the source of the money is one thing. I just have a hard time just hammering all these guys, knowing how unusual it is to be in that position.
Well, and to your point, the young guys, like, it's hard to get on tour. And when you get out there, there's no guarantee that you're going to stay. So if I was coming out of college and they offered me a few $1 million, I would definitely have to think about it. But when I thought about playing professional golf, I wanted to play the majors. I wanted to play on the PGA Tour. That's what was around when I was coming up. I think the game of golf is so special. The integrity, the honesty, the legacy of the game of golf, what it leaves behind. And I think the money, where it comes from, obviously it's weird, but I think for me it's just the game of golf is changing so much. I think the first tee, the 7 principles, that's the game of golf. That's how you should grow the game of golf. And this whole new setup just seems so money driven. And obviously if they offered me $50 million right now, I'd probably go take it. Yeah. Just because how do you turn that down?
Sure.
But I just feel like I don't want the game of golf to go down a hole and become like every other sport, because I think, it's a gentleman's game.
Yeah. And, Johnson, I agree with that. I just think that, and Jay, I remember distinctly being at the Players that week, and it was right after the initial comments that Phil had made that were attributed to the book that Alan Shipnuck wrote came out and scared off some guys who eventually have gone, in Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau, and it was the Sunday of Riviera, a Tigers event. And everybody showed up at the Players, and it was almost like, well, this fight is over. And I'm like, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. You won a little battle. And they leaned in on legacy and tradition. And I get it. But this money is so obscene, and so much of it, that this group is not going to be denied. And it was just a question of, did the PGA Tour, were they naive or take them for granted to some degree? Because the idea that legacy and tradition is going to be able to keep everybody in tow, I just think in this day and age, it's just not going to be, it's not reality.
It's not reality. And a guy like Bryson, he's young, he's a one-time major champion. Yeah. Is he really willing to throw away potentially not playing major championships again? He's a U.S. amateur champion. I just don't, he's got more money. He's not married. He's got more money than he knows what to do with already, right? So they're offering an obscene amount. It's going to get troubling if you have really young stars on the rise that are the top 10 on the FedEx Cup that go at the end of the year. That's going to be, I think a lot of guys are waiting to finish out the season, and then who knows?
See, that to me is the next shoe that's going to drop, right. Is that whether it be, who's being rumored, and Cam Smith's been kicked around, obviously, and that would be a huge blow. This guy he's young. He could be one of the faces of a brand in the International President's Cup team, which I think is legitimately good and could go to Quail Hollow and win if they're totally fortified, but Louis already gone. But I like you, think that these guys are going to get what they can get out of the playoffs, and I think there's going to be another exodus. Do you agree with that?
I agree with it completely, and my concern is what happens to the guys that are going to get pushed out. There's some guys that have gone, and sure. If the tour is really able to make this ban for life thing stick, so what happens to a guy that goes and now that tour says, hey, you're not good enough for us anymore. Sorry about your career. Hope this money gets you by the rest of your life. I just don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah, that is a purgatory that guys who are either, let's say that it's an established, DP World Tour player / European Tour player, or a guy whose life is on the PGA Tour. They now, do you go to the Asian Tour, and is that how you're going to try to, make a living? The other thing, you mentioned these young players. I was talking to Casey Martin, and he was talking about how like PGA Tour University is a good thing. I think they need to go a step further, Johnson. I really think that, we just had the young man from Oklahoma State who was the number 2 ranked amateur in the world who went to live.
Who was that?
Eugenio Chikora.
Okay.
So I mean, this is he almost won the individual NCAA title a couple of months ago, and he's from Spain, and I think some of it may have to do with representation. A lot of guys who are represented by one agency, it's not a coincidence, and a lot of them are gone. But giving guys Korn Ferry Tour status, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think that your tour, and Jay has to look at the idea of giving these guys an immediate entry onto the PGA Tour.
I mean, but how many?
I know.
And then you just start going, I mean, Q School's coming back
Yes.
next year, which is
Do you
going to be.
agree with that?
100%. I'm excited about a single year schedule again, January to August. Who knows what the fall is going to look like? But the wraparound schedule, I think it's confusing to a lot of people, and I'm excited about a Q School.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm glad that it's back. I think it's not only good television. I think it's the essence of what you do, which is, I mean, you talk about life and death. That to me is professional golf. Professional golf is the pressure that comes with winning tournaments, but also the pressure to pay water bills and to take that next step. I mean, that to me is the essence of the progression of what you've chosen to do.
Right. I mean, there's way more guys struggling to make ends meet than guys getting recruited by the Live Tour.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jason Gore, I played a lot with him on the Nationwide Tour and throughout my whole career. And I mean, he's got stories. He's been down to the last $100 in his bank account a couple times playing professional golf, and it's that is the true professional golf is the guy struggling, and watching a guy try to play the 6th round of Q School on the cut line to get his card is, I mean, I've been there and I failed. And
and when you can watch it as somebody who loves golf, when you watch this, that's pressure that is, whether it's keeping the dream alive, and there have been a handful of stories. I remember like Chesson Hadley might have been second stage, and it was Blaine Barber who actually caught an infraction on himself like the next day. And Chesson Hadley was getting ready to just go and try to get a job like in the restaurant industry. And it got him through to final stage, and he's managed to, keep the dream alive. And Max Homa was down and out and, had like a good weekend in Portland. And it gave him enough belief to keep it alive for the rest of the year. And now he's at a different level. I love stories like that. But my point is, I don't know, like to your question, how many guys is enough? I just think that some fundamental changes to fortify the entry point from the elite college golfer to not get plucked off potentially by Live Golf, who can guarantee these guys, what if they're getting signing bonuses of $1 million? It's going to be enticing as hell for these guys.
They are.
They are.
And they're going to get the club contracts. Like, I'm interested. I've been surprised to see. I know manufacturers don't have any sort of, I don't want to say loyalty to the PGA Tour, but they want their brand out there.
They want their brand out there.
And if their top players are going there, they're going to send reps. They're going to provide equipment. They're going to want their branding there. So I just worry about there's just no entry. How do you stay on that tour? Then I guess it's so small. There's no world ranking points. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it.
If they they announced recently that they are going to have a qualifying. Now, the qualifying is one player.
Like a Monday?
Yeah, okay. Like a Monday for one guy to get in the field. And then within 2 years, they actually are going to have kind of like players are going to get exiled. Look, first of all, to me,
exile.
I know,
nice choice of word.
I know it's not the greatest word. I'd hate to be exiled, but first of all, 54 holes to me is not championship golf. No cut is not championship. Soft. It reeks of softness. It reeks of exhibitionism. I don't like 48 players. I don't like 54 holes, and I don't like no cuts. Now, you can get around certain things with respect to the world ranking system. Now, the hierarchy and the people who run the world ranking system are people who are not necessarily fans of Live Golf. Do you think they'll eventually get it with this format?
No. I mean, I've heard from the horse's mouth that the new world ranking system is coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yes. That
we've worked years to try to get passed through, and it's got to be 72. And from my understanding, the new world ranking system, if you have limited field events like under 120,
exactly,
it is punishing. So even if they were able to get it under the new system, from what I understand is that their points would be less than a Corn Ferry event.
Okay.
So like that, to me,
that's so modest that the production required to maintain a healthy world ranking position would be, I mean, all you can do is fight the sharks that are in the pool you're in. And if all these guys are so depleted, it won't matter. It won't matter. Now look, for a handful of guys, whether it be Dustin Johnson, who has, he's got a 10-year exemption. He's got a lifetime exemption in the Masters. He gets, till 26 with the U.S. Open. You know what I mean? Like these guys who have, Cam Smith, you look at him and you go, well, I can now play in the Open Championship for the rest of my life, essentially, and I'm fully exempt in the others until 27. So I would imagine a lot of these guys are going, and DeChambeau, again, that's the thing. If these guys jump up or if they get major champions, those guys don't care about the other guys.
And you get enough major champions, of course, the Open Championship is going to want their defending champion to come back, and they want all their champions that are exempt to come back. I mean, you can't put a stop to it.
The Augusta National has not been in a position to have to answer to this. Now, there was talk before it. There were rumors about conversations that may or not have been had with Phil in particular. But if you consider Phil, Sergio, Patrick Reed, Dustin Johnson, Charles Schwartzel, I mean, these are guys who have all won this great tournament within the last 10 to 12 years. They're not going to say no to these guys, are they?
I don't think they can. I mean, they obviously can. They can do whatever they want, but I think it would look bad.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to watch it play out. I'm sad about the President's Cup here in town.
Yeah.
I mean, Louis Oosthuizen.
To be gutted.
Yeah.
To a degree. Especially if these guys play through the FedEx Cup playoffs and whether it be a couple of Americans, a couple of on the international side. Now, look, the event.
Abraham Answer.
Yeah. Who's already gone. And Louis Oosthuizen is he's a centerpiece of that side as well. And no, there's no doubt. It could be, now look, because you're a member there and you live in this town will be on its ear for that event. And it's going to be a wild time, but I don't want the teams to be depleted.
I don't either.
And not to mention, when you look ahead to the Ryder Cup and you look at the European side, and they had captaincy and captains lined up like G5s on a tarmac, and now they're all gone. Do you ever see a day where these guys are going to be? See, here's what I think the resolution is going to be. I don't think there'll ever be a partnership between LIV and the PGA Tour, but I think, and this is my own opinion, that the PGA Tour is going to get to a place where they're going to allow players who are members of that group to play a handful of times on the PGA Tour.
You would think that they'd have to if it keeps continuing this direction. There's no other option. But I mean, Henrik Stenson resigned the European Ryder Cup captaincy. I mean, I thought those guys loved the Ryder Cup.
It's a career appointment, but money is, again, legacy and tradition they're wonderful things, but they will not override an obscene amount of wealth that these players have not seen put in front of them, nor thought they ever would be in their lifetimes. I mean, I just, the players that have been offered $30, $40 million, you're going, what? Those guys haven't made half that in their careers.
I think they're going for that sweet spot. I mean, they know that, and I think they've done a lot of research into what we're going to offer guys and look at their career earnings, and if they say no, we'll double it.
Does the PGA Tour need to fortify the position at the top of the food chain by giving them more than just a stipend to cover expenses? And I'm talking about Thomas, Spieth, Rahm, and go down the list.
Well, I mean, the whole player impact program was kind of designed to do that.
Half of them left.
I know. So that's not working. Someone told me the other day that if the entire player impact program was split up to the membership of the PGA Tour, everybody would get $500,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I think guys like Jordan Spieth cares too much about it. I mean, he's made enough money in his life. And John Rahm said it. He's like, I've made enough money. I'll never be able to spend the money I've made already. He's like, I want to win tournaments.
Yeah.
So
I just, Again, these guys, when it comes to all these things that the PGA Tour clearly did as they saw what was a legitimate existential threat, and that was, continually bumping the players' purse and the FedEx Cup bonus pool and the amount of money that can be won at the Tour Championship and the Comcast, regular season awards and the player impact program. All those things, were they bad ideas or were they were necessary?
I think they're great ideas. They're putting more money. They're dipping into the reserve, which they don't like doing, to bolster these big event purses. And I think it's the right decision, but it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Know?
Do you, as far as them announcing this fall series, which will have events that will be alternate events for guys who are, and now with more co-sanctioned events with the DP World Tour, they need to have those playing opportunities. It's essential, because once the meter starts at the beginning of the year, it's amazing how quickly the opportunities start to dwindle. Especially when you start looking at the way the majors are lined up, I think that those events are essential. Do you agree with the idea of creating these potentially team component events with $20 to $25 million purses in the fall?
I don't like the team component stuff personally. I think it's reaching. I don't think we'll end up doing that personally, but I think it's just trying to copy what those guys are doing. There's only two team events that matter in professional golf, in my opinion, and that's men's professional golf, and that's the President's Cup and Ryder Cup. I don't know. I don't see the model. I don't.
Okay, so let me present this scenario and tell me if it's enticing at all. Let's say hypothetically Tiger captains a team. Doesn't mean he's necessarily playing, but the sponsorship opportunities would be plentiful. And if you put Spieth as a captain and Rahm as a captain and Justin Thomas as a captain, and these guys are literally picking their team, there is a curiosity and an appetite for that I would be entertained by. And the idea of, and again, I'm not going to use the word exile again, but taken into a place where if your fourth guy was you could rotate
Johnson
out.
Wagner?
Yeah. Exactly. I think the sponsorship opportunities with something like that could be really, really good.
And thinking about that, I loved college golf, and if I could recreate the vibe of a college team, it would be incredible. It really would. And all the guys love playing New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's different. It is something different in the monotony of the PGA Tour, the same thing over and over and over. It breaks it up, and especially that time of year.
You're going up against football, and I'm not suggesting you're gonna bite into their apple. You're not going to do it, but to give people and also to entice and motivate the best players who want to look. To me, the FedEx Cup playoffs were created at a time when it was like, wait a second, we can't stop the meter on seeing Phil and Tiger after the month of August. As soon as the PGA Championship is over, we need Tiger in September, and it's not an accident. The thing was built in the middle 2000s, and for the same reason, I don't think you just simply give up. And I think your off season is too short to begin with. I want you guys to go away to rest, for us to pine for you guys, and you come back at the beginning of the year and it's like, well, I just saw him at the RSM 5 weeks ago.
Right.
However, I think having a short series of events where the best players in the game are enticed to be there is something that could provide capital, and also, again, the reason for guys to play is like real money, because these guys are making a ton already.
Absolutely. And to your point, I know the top players want that off season. They want to finish in August and not have to play again until January and be ready to go. But to have those few events, I think it'll work. I think it'll work for the tour, and I don't know if it's going to – I don't think it's enough to stop guys if they want to go over and play live. I don't think it's going to stop that, but I think it could be I think the tour is going in the right direction with these changes.
You mentioned the name Jason Gore, and I think Jason, not only myself, but a ton of players who, not only because he's a contemporary of yours, but also, younger guys, like that was a great move by the USGA to provide a conduit of understanding from a player's perspective what it is that you are hoping for in a championship setup. I actually think that the PGA Tour would be well served to have somebody who's played the game at the highest level to have the same type of job on a week-to-week basis. Is that something that the tour should look into?
Yes, and I've thought about the same thing, and I want that position. I mean,
seriously.
Well, Ross Berlin was a long time player relations, and he just retired recently. I think after the Players Championship, and promoted from within. And player relations team is great, but they need to add a former player into that team because it's a big deal. Now, the PGA Tour, we run these events every week, so the tour knows most things, but it is nice to have a player's perspective. No, and the USGA hit a home run with Jason.
They did, and you can say, well, that's totally different. Basically it boils down to one event. Look, one event, and as a year progresses, all the things that are going on in professional golf on a week-to-week basis need to be understood by the people who are running the biggest events in golf. And as much as the PGA Tour, like you said, it's a traveling circus and they still are not in that locker room. They still don't have the intimate relationships and the trust and the voice. I think they need a player conduit very badly. And I bring that up because there are several people who have mentioned you to me. And I already, first of all, I think you should be doing television. Even though you still want to play. But I think that type of job is somebody who's been out there who has connective tissue to younger players, but competed against the guys who are now into their 40s, that player needs to be part of the decision-making process.
Right. Absolutely. And you're hitting the nail on the head with the whole thing. And I think given the time where we're at right now, it would be a good time to make that decision of all these things they're doing to try to keep people here, having a player to come talk to. And, I had a conversation with Bryson about a year ago about LIV and about him going or not going. And I thought we had a great conversation, and, he made his decision. And
yeah.
If I was getting offered $200 million, I'd make the same one. But I agree with you.
Well, Johnson, the thing is that it's not to suggest that anybody is going to be able to change anybody's mind wholeheartedly. What it means is you have an understanding of the heartbeat of where people's minds are, and not only just about this bigger threat to the PGA Tour and LIV, but all the other things. Like you shouldn't wait until the end of the year to fill out a performance review on what the tour has done. That should be something that is, and I understand the Player Advisory Council and all that. You guys periodically will get together. I think you guys need somebody who is constantly hearing and getting feedback, good, bad, indifferent, on what is going on.
Which would be, that's like basically a players' union.
Yeah, exactly. I get it. And look, you don't have to be unionized to have representation.
No, and the tour, to keep players from unionizing, should hire someone like a Jason Gore to be their guy.
Yeah. Well, I hope that happens. As far as, you and playing, you always had, I was always curious because you had, like, your mannerisms, the way that you played, you had a very particular methodology. Where did that come from?
I played a lot of golf growing up. I hated practicing. I never went to the driving range, and probably until college.
You just wanted to play.
Just wanted to play. And I loved, we would play in high school. We'd play for, grilled cheese and fries or something. And it was never about money. It was just wanting to beat whoever I was playing against. And I just have always loved competing. Now, my mannerisms and everything I've tried to really harness it. The pre-shot routine has always been important. A few years ago, I started breathing a lot better, and I think breathing helped me a ton. Maybe I should go back to breathing a little better.
It's so interesting that you bring that up. He said, I think that is, I think we take for granted breathing. You're like, what are you talking about? No, I'm talking about conscious breathing. And I had this conversation with Casey Martin about the idea of a quiet mind, and then he thinks it starts with breath. Graham McDowell, same thing. He hadn't won in a while. He was struggling, and all that does is, all that manifests is tension and anxiety.
It lowers your heart rate.
Exactly. Right. So conscious breathing is essential.
I worked with Gio Valiente for a couple of years, and he kind of taught me the breathing stuff, and I've gone away from it, and I've been so nervous these last few years of starts. I'm like, why am I nervous? I've missed plenty of cuts. I've played plenty of bad golf. Like, let's do some things to start playing good again. And breathing's one of those things. It's, man.
Who do you think, and I want to take Tiger out of this because it's not a fair fight really, but in your time, who are guys who you think do a really good job of focusing?
I always think about Jerry Kelly. I love playing with Jerry. He was one of my favorite guys. He was so good to me when I was a rookie too. And Jerry talks a ton, and he's always talking. But when it's time for him to play, he flips a switch and just gets right into it. And I think everybody's different, and it's, there's guys that don't like to talk, but Jerry always seemed to be able to flip that switch from being calm and relaxed and talking and joking to flipping that switch and being just dead on focused.
Yeah, he is. I did an instructional shoot with him a couple of years ago, and he told me, he's like, look, I'm not going to be anybody but who I am, but if I get less verbal, that means I'm not in a good space. But he's a perfect example of the guy who maintained fully exempt status until he was 50, which not only is it underrated, but it also, I think, I look at guys who stopped playing competitive golf in their early 40s and then wanted to go back and play at 50, and it hadn't been easy to get back in the ring. DeMarco, who had a really good career, Chris didn't play for 5 years, Justin Leonard's getting ready to embark on it now, whereas guys like Jerry, who, again, has just kept the meter running, and I'm not surprised at all that he's as good as he is.
Right. Well, I mean, I just... playing out of past champions category, you get one start a month or so, even less. And so to go out and try to perform, to play competitive golf and be good at it, you need to do it all the time. You need it. Brendan DeYoung, one of my best friends,
Yep.
He doesn't really like playing golf when he's home, but when he was in the prime of his career, he'd play 35 times a year, and he'd just play his way into form. And to your point, if you take 8 years off of competitive golf, how on earth, how long is it going to take to get back what you've lost?
Yeah, and that's why, look, I never put anything past Tiger being able to achieve anything, and I was there in 19 and felt like that was the summit, that when he won the Masters and walked every step that final round, I'm like, I'll never see anything quite like this again. I don't know how he's going to be able to do this. Johnson, I look, to show up every 4 or 5 months, like, what is he going to play again next April?
Right.
And like when he won the Masters in 19, the building that he did to that moment was very significant. He led the Open Championship in July through 63 holes. He pushed Koepka to the wire at Belle Reve, shot 64 in the final round. He won at Eastlake. He had beaten Rory 2 weeks before at the match play. Like, all these incremental things he had done. And that still took a Herculean effort and a couple guys to rinse it on 12, and all the stars aligned, and I just don't see how it's possible again.
Like you said, anything's possible with Tiger, but I agree with you. If he doesn't, he's going to have to get some warm-up starts, you would think.
But he's acting as if that's never going to happen.
You think he'll play in the Bahamas?
I think that would be but again, okay, so he's going to play the Hero in December, and then what? He's going to turn up in
Bay Hill?
See, it's
an easy walk.
Yeah, but even the easy walks, like people talked about how St. Andrews was flat. It's like the most rumpled, rolling, bumpy walk imaginable.
I was shocked to see him play the way he played there.
Yeah, me too.
I thought he would. He made the cut at Masters and the PGA.
Extraordinary.
I thought for sure. Not that he was going to win, but I did not see him being 10 over par and just completely out of it the whole time.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I don't know how, if you do not get a competitive environment in advance, like soon enough in advance, so that the residual effects of it are still present. I don't know. It'll be something to behold. Do you expect him to have a role at Quail Hollow at the President's Cup?
I think he'll be there, right?
Yeah.
He's part of that. He was the last captain.
He's in the bubble. He's very much. Are you surprised that he is as invested in team golf now?
It has been so wonderful to see that over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
That he has started joking around with guys more. These younger generation, Justin Thomas loves him, and he's got these great relationships. I would expect him to be there and have a role.
Yeah,
and it's good to see. And I hope we see him like that for the rest of as long as he wants. Because
I think that is surprisingly, like, I thought he would be a captain, the inevitability of him captaining one or both, and he's already done the President's Cup, but I didn't think that there would be this strategic investment like there is now with him. I remember talking to Mark Steinberg many years ago, and he said, look, you got to understand, like, he was not raised to help others.
Right.
And it's not a bad thing.
Right.
He was raised to be predatorial and to extinguish the opposition.
Yes.
Did
you watch the documentary?
Yes.
I thought it was fantastic.
It was great. And for people who are like, well, it was too... That's raw. I mean, genius is not always pretty.
Right.
I mean, it can be ugly at times. But I didn't think that we would see him to where he's so into the weeds on all this stuff. And I think it's great for golf. I think it's great for USA Golf that he is taking the time and the emotional and kind of psychological energy and devoting it to advancing. Like, these guys are going to be better players because of all of this time around him.
And then the guys that live down in Florida, I'm sure they get to play a lot of golf with him. And I mean, I've played one round with him, and it was one of the best days of my life.
Where was that?
Practice round at Litherman St. Anne's in 12.
Okay.
He was awesome. We teed off early, but
was it just the two of you?
It was just the two of us.
Really?
Was
he
one.
chatty?
I mean, I chatted him up the whole day. I mean, I didn't know if I was ever going to play with him again, so I wanted to make the most of it. And Joe LaCava was caddying for him, who I had known pretty well.
Sure.
And it was a great day. There was one person on the first tee. By the time we got to the first green, there was 10 people, and then the crowd just grew and grew and grew. And I never saw the stands on 18 and as full as I did that day. The rest of the week, it was incredible.
You won 3 times. I think you played 9 majors, and when you won in Houston, I think the Houston win got you in the Masters.
The next week,
and you finished tied for 38th. But what was that gesture for? That it should have been better?
My major career is kind of a joke. I wish I could have played more and played better and more. I'm such a golf fan. I was so excited and worked up every time I was at a major that it just never really happened.
What stuck out most about that week? I mean, as somebody who is a geek like you are and like I am, I've played that golf course one time in December, and I was so emotionally overwhelmed by just looking in every direction, and it reminded me of somebody hitting a shot, whether it was 1975 or whenever, that I really couldn't even function. What do you remember most about that week?
Tuesday, I walked out of the locker room, and it was the old driving range that was right there. And I walked out of the locker room, and all my friends from New York club pros, and these guys had driven through the night to come watch the Tuesday practice round, and I was just like, I don't know if I cried, but I was just overwhelmed with emotion. And one of my oldest friends, Nick Maselli, he's at Old Oaks Country Club in New York. I brought him out onto the range as my coach, and he was like standing on the driving range just freaking out. He was trying to stay calm, but it was just little things like that. And that whole day with them out there with me was pretty incredible.
What did you learn about that golf course that week that had you had a lot of starts going forward, you would have applied?
Man, I don't know. I can't answer that.
Really?
I mean,
I remember Adam Scott saying that he spent so many years trying to find where to hit it as opposed to where to miss it.
Right.
And that when he finally won, and I'd heard it before, but not as succinctly as he put it. He's like, all I did was make sure that I always had the right miss. And I was like, wow, okay, I get it. John Cook told me that he always over-prepared. He was exhausted by Thursday because there's a giddiness to there because it's the same place every year. And I think people, I don't know how you were. When I grew up, the U.S. Open was it. I mean, I just the blue blazers and the bucket hats and PJ Boatwright, and I'm like, this is the one. And the Masters, everybody now has a love affair with the Masters that I almost feel like it may be the easiest to win in terms of field, but the hardest to win in terms of the pressure and the psychology of it.
Completely agree. I grew up loving the U.S. Open. My grandfather was on the executive committee of the USGA, so I still love the U.S. Open. It's still number one for me. But Yeah, the Masters, I would think coming down the stretch, the nerves would be a little tougher there than anything. I mean, lifetime exemption, you get to go to Augusta anytime you want.
Exactly.
I mean, it would be overwhelming standing on that 18th tee with a one-shot lead. I may just crumble to the ground, but
yeah, I thought it was great that Justin Rose, when he won the U.S. Open, the members at Marion wanted to make him an honorary member, and he said, he apparently said that is beyond flattering. But if I'm going to be a member, I'm going to be a paying member. I wanna. This means so much to me that I want to be able to bring my friends here, and he's done that. He's a regular member at Marion, and that's great. And it's not like you become a regular member at Augusta National, but to your point, going there every year and to be in that room on Tuesday night that's why I just think all that stuff, how can you compartmentalize everything and keep that out of your mind when you're trying to get that done?
Well, I mean, the level of focus that I've had when I have won tournaments, it's like an out-of-body experience. And the high that you get from winning, I think you just are so focused and in the zone that, I mean, I can't speak to winning a major, but winning any golf tournament, the level of focus it takes, I've tried, you can't replicate it. I mean, it happens, and it builds over, how you prepared Tuesday to Wednesday. What did you do after the round, your late round Thursday? Did you go to the putting green and do your drill? That's an extra level of confidence. And to the guys that win major championships like Cam Smith, how good did he look finishing the Open Championship? The up and down on 17.
Absurd.
And the lag putt on 18, like his speed and his focus, and he just had it. That round he played Sunday was one of the best rounds of golf I've ever watched.
Yep, no question. When you won, at the beginning of the year that you won Sony, you had a stretch that was off the charts good. I mean, you could have won at Humana, which is the California Desert, the Bob Hope. When you're playing like that and you have that kind of stretch, back to when I said, you guys say, like, when you're playing great, you never think you're going to play poor again. When you're playing poor, you never think you're going to hit another good shot. Was that as good as you've ever played, that stretch?
Without a doubt. That was the best golf, other than maybe some amateur golf in New York. But I worked out that entire offseason. I was as skinny as I've ever been as an adult. And I was playing at Kapalua, finished 9th, and I got to the Sony Open, and I knew I was going to win. I shot 5 under on the front 9 on Thursday, and I had already, I'd like to thank so-and-so, and I think I shot 3 over on the back, and it kind of brought me back down to earth. Yeah. But then I just played incredible golf the rest of the week and won, and I got to the Humana, and there was no doubt that I was going to have a chance to win there too. Like, it's just funny that now I feel like I could never play good again. That's the greatest quote. I think, who was it that told me that? An old a veteran back in the day told me that. Oh, it was Gary Koch said. That's the first time I ever heard that. When you're playing well, you never feel like you're gonna. Anyway.
Yeah. I
got to the Masters that year in 12. I was number 2 on the FedEx Cup. Had played good at Doral. Played good in Houston the week before, and I was such a jerk at Augusta. I was just I felt like I had to play good, and that was basically the end of that year for me. I played horrible in every major after that, and that year.
Why do you think that was?
I was holding on. I wanted to make the tour. I'd never made a tour championship,
yep.
And I think from the Masters on, all I was trying to do was make the tour championship, and I stopped doing the things that I did to play well early in the year.
Yeah, the idea of being uptight when you're in a stretch. Have you ever had a stretch where you thought, I'm not going to play well again? Was there anything that you could rely on to get you out of that? I mean, the guy you worked with forever, Bobby, I mean, were there fundamental things that you went back to?
Swing-wise, probably not. I think the thing that got me out of it the most was working with Gio Valiente.
Okay.
I was in a real rut when I started working with him, probably 14, 15, and he taught me breathing and just getting more routine-oriented, being more active. And I'm getting ready at post-surgery. I'm getting ready to get back in the gym. That's always been something. When I've worked out and I've been in good shape, better shape, I find confidence level goes through the roof. I hate working out so much that I'd rather go play basketball or tennis or something.
Yeah.
The gym just doesn't do it for me. But
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing for me to play well is to be fit and confident.
When you play, from what I understand, you like playing with your friends at Quail, and you play a lot of golf. I
do.
mean, you can't simulate the competitive environment of being out on the PGA Tour. You can't. How do you substitute what is required to play broke every day to make a living to be good when you're just playing with your buddies?
I mean, we play for a little cash, and I'm giving a lot of strokes. I've got a.
What is your index?
I've got it where I want it right now. I think I'm a plus 4.1.
That's ridiculous. That's where you want it.
Well, I mean, I've posted a lot of bad scores from tour events lately. It's fun managing the handicap. Quail's kind of known for some handicap management, so I've learned a lot from some friends out there.
I bet you have.
The occasional 3-footer when the hole's already over, maybe you miss it. I don't know. But I love playing golf. We have a lot of guys in town to play with, tour players. And
guys see, here's the thing about the guys that you're around, is that anytime most times I ask tour players, like, have you played here? No. Have you played there? No. Like, it's your job. Like, when you're not playing competitive golf, you're not going to go off and have a buddies trip. But guys like you and Webb, like Webb likes playing golf. Like, he'll go down to Pinehurst and he'll play a lot of golf, or Eagle Point. And Harold seems like the same thing. He likes to play golf.
Yes.
I've seen him at Congaree playing golf.
Yes.
And you like to play golf.
I love going on golf trips, too. It's one of my favorite.
Do you really?
Oh, my gosh. A Hoopie Match Club, have you been down there?
I have indeed.
I mean, golly. I
Special.
can't think of a better. You want to go when they open?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Get 8 guys and go down there. I can't think of a better thing.
I just did a trip with 3 fraternity brothers of mine who, the 4 of us have not played golf together in over 30 years. And we met in Denver and played Cherry Hills, and then hopped over to Holyoke and played Ballyneal, and then to Caprock Ranch, Gil's newest.
How was that?
Sensational. And I'm not saying this. It can trade blows without a hoopie. It is that good.
Cool.
It's stunning how, like, 6 of the holes are in the canyon. The Snake River, it's got this white rock. It's 300 feet above the canyon floor. And then 8 holes are in the prairie. And then Sand Hills, which I've been to one other time. So those 4 golf courses with 3 buddies for 4 days, I mean, that was a next level trip. I love that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hear Sand Hills. My brother went out there a couple of years ago.
It's Mecca.
Yeah. But it's 2 hours from the nearest little airstrip.
Yeah, it's 70 miles from Valentine, Nebraska, and 70 miles from North Platte, which has commercial service. Yeah, I mean, but it's a journey.
Right.
But that's kind of like part of it. See, but I don't understand. Like, all you guys like to play golf. I don't know what it is about this Charlotte gang that does.
Well, I mean, there's some guys that don't.
Yeah,
Brendan
does not.
I feel comfortable saying that. If he heard that, he would probably be
How
okay
about
with
Mackenzie
it.
He's a Charlotte
Yeah,
guy.
he likes to play. He comes out to Quail every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got young kids now, and Brandon Hagee just moved to town.
Yeah, I heard that.
We've got a good group of guys. A bunch of young David Coker, who just won on the Corn Ferry last week, and Trevor Cohn, and there's a big group of guys in Charlotte.
Yeah. Well, what do you expect President's Cup wise before I let you get out of here? Whatever the makeup of the team is, I think Trevor's team, again, it all depends on who's going to be there. Let's say they're all there, with the exception of Louis, who we know is not going to be there, and Charles, who I think puncher's chance of getting on the side.
He wouldn't.
I doubt. I agree with you. He wouldn't have been on the side. And Abe is not on the side. I mean, they're already depleted. It's too bad, because I think that they were right there in 19, and I think they would have been right there. And still kind of think they will be.
I think it would be good. I mean, obviously I want to root for
the
U.S., but I think it would be good for the event if the international team could eventually win one.
I do too.
But I'm more concerned about the spectator experience because I've never been to a cup, and there's only 5 groups on Thursday and Friday. And
let me tell you something. It is abject misery if you're 5'9", which I am. The first Ryder Cup that I went to was a million years ago, but I wasn't really paying attention. That was in '91. But I went to Louisville, and I went with Jay Billis. And that son of a bitch is 6'8".
Right.
So he could see everything.
Right.
And he laughed the 3 days because I could see nothing. And then from then on, I'll never forget walking down the 18th fairway at Medina, and Bones, Jim Mackay, said to me, "Have you ever been inside the ropes at a Ryder Cup before?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "There's nothing like it, is it?" And there isn't. There isn't. And I've been to every, Ryder Cup in the United States since. It's a challenging viewing experience. I would imagine you're fortified with some hospitality.
Well, one venue. I'm hoping to add a couple more, but I need some friends to invite me. But yeah, you just sit and watch all the groups come through in one spot. I mean, that's the only way. But at what point do you have to get there? At what time do you have to get there?
Hours.
To get to first tee. Hours.
In the first tee at Quail, with the way that they're going to have those, eye-level suites, which is going to be cool.
I really need to find some of those people. That's what
I actually know some of those people, so I'll help you out with that. Look, at Whistling Straits, I was helping out with SiriusXM, and our broadcast location was right down from the first tee. 2 hours before the first ball was struck, they're doing chants, they're singing. It's 2 hours.
Right.
And then you get out on the golf course, and there's a stanchion on the 6th hole. They're not going to see a shot for 90 minutes, and it's full.
That's what I'm afraid of. I'm not willing to sit on that first tee box for 2 hours, especially if the sun's blaring down in September in Charlotte.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a fun week. I'm excited for the city. I think there's a lot of cool fan experiences, and I think it's going to be just an incredible week.
Are you nervous at all about the surgery?
A little bit. I don't like getting knocked out. I just had my first ever colonoscopy, and I was terrified of getting knocked out. But
Yeah.
I think I'll be better.
Yeah.
I got a good doctor doing it.
So what is after surgery? When can you get after it and get active?
I've heard 100% 4 to 6 weeks, and I think this knee's been messed up for a long time. I haven't been able to squat down and read a putt for 5 years, so I think hopefully this is going to be pretty immediate relief, and I'll be chipping and putting within 10, 12 days and ripping that driver 3 weeks.
Okay. All right, let me get you out of here with these 5 quick questions. Who is the best player who never won a major?
Lee Westwood.
Okay, that's a good answer. As far as longevity, it's interesting how that question could be answered now. Like, you have these younger guys who are going to likely win majors. Yeah, Westwood's a good answer.
Who would you say?
I would say I would probably say Westwood. I think that if Matt Kuchar played all over the world, if Matt, again, he got Spieth, just that last 90 minutes of that was
some exciting television.
I think Westwood's the better player career-wise. I'd probably go with him.
Colin Montgomery?
Yeah. I mean, of the guys who never won a major, Monty's right there. And then there's some guys like Doug Sanders, who was very close, and Bill Melhorn. And no, I think Westwood's a good answer. All right, the smartest guy on tour.
Lucas Glover. He's so well
very
read.
Sneaky. He reads a lot.
He's so well read, and he does crossword puzzles.
Does he really?
In no time. I mean, he's brilliant. He's fun to talk with and play with. I have a lot of respect.
What
for
does he read? Does he read fiction or nonfiction?
Both,
or
everything?
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know he did the crossword puzzles. All right. What are your vices?
Whoa, we need another hour. I don't know that I should be sharing all of them.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, I like to drink alcohol.
Okay. It's okay.
I
don't even know if that's necessarily a vice. I mean, as long as you manage it well. I mean,
sometimes. Gosh, I'm not going to go. Too many to count.
Okay. All right. The most talented player we've never heard of.
Oh, this kid I played with at the at U.S. Open qualifying this year. He's playing like minor league stuff down in Florida. His name is Michael Sweeney.
Okay.
He's from Connecticut. He was like the number 1 player in the world the 36 holes I played with him. Played way too slow, but was
really good,
remarkable. I guess he doesn't.
How old is he?
22, 21.
Okay.
And I was like, "Have you ever been to Q school?" And he said, "Nope." He's like, "I don't have any money." I'm like, "Well, that's not an excuse. You need to find some money and you need to go to Q school."
Yeah.
So hopefully.
Did he get through that day?
He lost in a playoff.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bogeyed.
Where did he play college golf?
Like a year of community college or something.
Wow. All right. A movie you can watch whenever you see it on TV. Like you watch the last 30 minutes, you watch it if it just started.
Dazed and Confused.
That's a very good movie. That's a good one. All right, the last one, the most embarrassing moment you've had in your life, not necessarily on a golf course.
Well, oh man, I hurt my leg back in February on a golf trip down at Calusa Pines.
How was that, by the way? I've never been there.
It's fantastic.
That's what I've heard.
Fantastic, and a great place
To hang.
And I rolled a golf cart. I wasn't trying to, just made a right-hand turn. Something was messed up with the axle, but it was one of those like demo carts that went really fast. And
So you're the one who was on the bottom. If you turned right.
yeah, I turned right. There was nobody in the passenger seat with me, and the cart, landed on my leg and drugged me for a while. And that whole next day, I couldn't play golf. But my team, my 7 other guys I was out there with, they played, and I was hobbling around the locker room as guys came in and out, and it looked like a motorcycle accident, and I was embarrassed all day.
Wow, but you were not like injured beyond just the scrapes and the bruises?
A little MCL sprain, but nothing, no surgery required.
I got to ask you, since you do like the buddies' trips, where have you not been that you want to go?
So my brother went and they played Ballyneal and Sandhills.
Yeah.
There's 4 of them last summer. They loved that. He's also been up to Nova Scotia to Cabot Links. I hear that's fantastic.
Yeah, Cabot Links and Cabot Cliffs. They've got 2 up there now.
I'd love to go. I mean, I've been over to Scotland and played the Open, and my brother and I've gone and played other places while over there. But I think, an international, an Ireland or Scotland trip.
Have you not been to Ireland?
I haven't.
Yeah, very good ones there for sure. I mean, and your brother loved Ballyneal and Sandhills?
He did. He said Sandhills at night. You go out and you look at the stars. You can't see clear stars.
It's extraordinary. I was telling these guys that the first time I went there, we were I stayed with my best friend who I went out there with. We stayed in North Platte and got up the next morning and drove there, and it was 70 miles. We saw 3 cars.
That's amazing.
And then this time we stayed in Valentine, which is Caprock Ranch, which Gil just finished last year, is just south of Valentine. And so it's 65 miles just going due south. And probably saw, maybe 5-6 cars. But it is, you just think like, God, this is our country. And this is amazing. Really amazing. You would love it.
I've heard. I'm going to have to make that happen sometime.
Yeah, it's the most, Sandhills to me is the most uninterrupted golf experience. Once you get there, you then have to get on a golf cart and drive a mile to come over the hill to get into what is the valley of where the golf course is. And the man who built it, Dick Young's cap, and the story of how it got built is pretty extraordinary. He was out there the day that I was there. And I asked him, I said, why not more than 18 holes? And he said, Gary, I'm not really a golfer, but to me, the Boston Garden had 2 rims. Yankee Stadium has 4 bases. Golf is 18 holes. And I went,
perfect.
That's a great answer.
How was the par 3 course at Ballyneal?
We didn't even play it. The Mulligan course. Because we wanted to get to Caprock, and so we passed on it. Ballyneal was very good, really good, and they're fast.
Right.
The golf courses are fast. The ground is where you don't use the ground a lot in this country.
No, which is why I love Ohoopee so much.
Yes.
It's fast. Even I've played there after a heavy rain, and it's still been fast.
Have you been to Congaree yet?
We played last year. Whatever.
Oh, you were there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. Got some rain. It wasn't the way it should have been.
The tour. I got out there Monday, and all I heard was how fast and
it
firm.
is.
And I got on the first green and left a putt 10 feet short. They were running 8. The tour slowed them down. Which they did at Trinity Forest as well. They're so scared to let it. And you're getting 156 guys around that golf course in a day. I get not wanting those runoffs to be super fast and pace of play taking forever, but. It was a shame the way that golf course was prepared.
I agree. And I think the CJ Cup in October, it'll be different there.
Is that going to Congaree?
Yeah. Sweet. Yes. Yeah. We'll need to do. I did Ohoopee. I was the first person to play the 2 golf courses in the same day.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Well, it was kind of like Days of Thunder going from Congaree to Ohoopee. I mean, it was 75 miles, and it was not at the speed limit because it was December. We were trying to get it done before the sun went down.
That's impressive.
And it was good, though. Listen, it's great to see you.
You too.
Thanks for
Really
coming
good to
in.
see you. Thank you, Gary.
All right. We really appreciate Johnson Wagner for coming in, and most importantly for you listening and watching to this 5 Clubs conversation.